Good evening. Coming up in Mello TV Evening News tonight, the Jamaica Constabulary Force reporting that it has issued traffic e-tickets valuing over $34 million since the new Road Traffic Act became effective February 1. Police constable charged for alleged rape and robbery in St. Elizabeth. And government makes concessions to the new Road Traffic Act following public outcry. And now the news in detail. Commissioner of Police Major General Anthony Anderson says the newly implemented Firearms Act is a game-changing modification that has contributed to the increase of firearms seizure when compared to last year, 2022. The commissioner made the disclosure yesterday at a virtual press briefing.
The surest indicator of whether someone is a gunman must be the fact that they have been held with an illegal gun. The new act should cause every gunman or anyone else who feels they should to think twice about being in possession of a firearm, an illegal firearm, much less using it to commit a crime. With respect to firearms, as at the end of September, we seized 584 illegal guns, an 11% increase over last year. Shotgun seizures were up by 111%, while rifle seizures were up by 58%. Pistols were up by 8% and submachine guns were up by 42%. So we are pulling in a number of guns from the streets. We continue our strategic push toward bringing the membership of the JCF closer to the 15,000 mark. Our program of recruitment continues in earnest, and we believe that at the current rates, we are on target to recruit 1,200 by the end of this fiscal year. That's 1,200 additional members. Let me take this opportunity to urge every bright, passionate, dedicated, and honest young person out there to consider a career in the Jamaica Constabulary Force. If you believe you have what it takes and you can make a contribution to serving your country, take the test, enlist with us, and be a force for good.
In a statement released by the JCF, it highlighted that the Ministry of National Security's implementation of the traffic ticketing management system as a positive development and a significant step towards Jamaica's efforts to increase public order and road safety. It is interesting to note that the JCF increased the traffic tickets issued last year by 60%. Since the implementation of the new Road Traffic Act, which became effective on February 1, 2023, the police are reporting that they have issued e-tickets valuing $34,925,500 from February 1 to February 6, with $2,357,500 in payment. The police commissioner explained the validity of the need for a legislative move for the issuing of tickets, adding that the amendments were necessary.
And this is what we are required to do and are empowered to do in law. We are issuing just under 500,000 tickets a year. Now, some of the discussions that have been taking place since the new regulations is how can we enforce less? Nobody's talking about not breaching. What they're talking about is that we should take a different response. Now, if we do that, then the chaos will continue. Now, there are other aspects to this system that needs to be fixed. Because the fact that somebody can be driving around with 1,200 tickets and they're taken to court and they're dealt with, we probably deal with 20 of those tickets. The person, depending on if it's tickets that accrue points, the person may or may not have their license suspended. Without those sorts of consequences, that your license is suspended and that the fines and you have to pay the tickets that are given to you.
And the police are reporting this evening that wanted man Nesta Bigger Crime Morrison was shot and killed during a joint police military operation earlier today.
I wish to confirm to the Jamaican people that Nesta Morrison, OC Bigger Crime of 11 miles Bull Bay, which is the border of St. Thomas, was fatally shot during an intelligence-led operation by the security forces in Longville Park, Clarendon. Bigger Crime has been on the police most wanted list for over 2 years. And despite many requests from the police for him to turn himself in, he actually did not, and several operations were mounted against him that were unsuccessful. Bigger crime reigned terror on the citizens within the 11-mile Bull Bay areas and its environment, killing and maiming several people. I think it's a victory for the people of those communities, and it's a great relief that he can no longer perpetrate those acts of violence against them.
As it appears that there are more violent altercations involving students, the Justice and Education Ministries are attempting to increase the restorative justice program in schools. The Ministry of Justice held its Restorative Practices Schools intervention yesterday at the Hope Botanical Gardens and Zoo. Minister of Education Favor Williams said that the administration is aware of the graphic footage of school fights that have been going viral on social media.
We've all seen the videos, all plastered over social media, of the many fights and quarrels among our students. And I don't know of anyone in Jamaica who is looking at those videos is really feeling good about it. We're not. Because you are the up-and-coming generation. And if you're beginning that with fighting, what kind of country are we going to have? So we have to devise all kinds of programs for you to help you in your daily interactions with your peers to understand that disagreements are going to happen as you interact, right? We can't avoid that. It's the only thing you can control is your reaction to the events that are unfolding in the moment. And so if somebody says something that you don't like, can you check yourself in that moment and say, you know, while I'd like to do X, I'm not going to do it because the consequences are going to be awful. So we're trying to get students to think before they react, and we have to teach you how to do that.
According to Justice Minister Delroy Chuck, the program aims to alter students' perspectives on dispute and conflict resolution. This year, the initiative is aimed at 500 schools and numerous towns with the goal of teaching students how to settle disputes amicably.
There's no reason to be fighting, quarreling. You can disagree and tolerate other person's point of view. You can disagree with how a person dresses, but tolerate and say that is the way they dress. You can disagree with how a person speaks, but tolerate that that person speaks differently. So RJ practice is really to get into the communities and get into the schools and explain to students, adults, that when you disagree, when you do something wrong, learn how to resolve it. Because if you resolve it peacefully, then you can restore the relationship. You see? And that is what restorative justice is about. After there's wrongdoing, the wrongdoer must take the responsibility to acknowledge that they have done wrong. Yes, the disagreement might be who was wrong. But at the end of the day, both might be wrong. So you both accept responsibility, apologize, and then restore the relationship. It is very important that we Jamaicans learn to get along. And I will be going into the schools with the team to urge the children to be repairers of the breach.
A police constable has been charged following investigations into the report of rape and robbery committed in Black River, St. Elizabeth on January 30. Constable Alwyn Hill has been charged with rape, grievous sexual assault, forcible abduction, corruptly soliciting and simple larceny, acts he allegedly committed while on duty. Reports are that between 10 p.m. and 10:30 p.m., Constable Hill was on duty with 3 other officers conducting a vehicle checkpoint operation. A female driver was stopped due to a breach of the Road Traffic Act. Constable Hill allegedly solicited money in exchange for not prosecuting the woman. The woman was taken to an automated teller machine and was subsequently sexually assaulted. The woman made a report and the police immediately launched an investigation. The case file was prepared and submitted to the Director of Public Prosecution, the DPP, who recommended that Constable Hill be charged. The other 3 officers were subsequently released. The police high command is commending the investigators for their speed, efficiency, and professionalism that led to the arrest and charge of the constable. The police commissioner, Major General Anthony Anderson, is assuring that the public that such allegations are taken seriously and that is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all citizens. In the meantime, the police assigned to the St. Andrews Central Division seized 2 firearms and several rounds of ammunition following a shooting incident on Bryce Hill Road in Augusttown, Kingston 7 on Tuesday, February 7. Reports are that about 9:40 p.m., residents heard explosions and summoned the police. On arrival of the lawmen, 1 man was seen with gunshot wounds and a magazine containing 13 9mm cartridges found beside him. Investigators led the police to search the premises. 1 Taurus 9mm pistol, 1 Beretta 9mm pistol, and 3 additional 9mm cartridges were found atop a roof. The injured man was taken to hospital for treatment. Another man later turned up at hospital suffering from gunshot wounds, reporting that he was injured in the same area. Both men are being treated under police guard while detectives probe the incident. The government has made a number of concessions in response to criticisms following the adoption of the Road Traffic Act and regulations on February 1. One of them was the elimination of the requirement for children to be restrained in special seats in public passenger vehicles. A 3-month time frame will also be provided for further modifications to the Act. Taxi drivers protested the new regulations, in some cases refusing to transport children out of concern for being charged by the police. Transport Minister Audley Shaw briefly addressed the concessions to the House of Representatives on Tuesday in response to days of unrest that included the suspension of taxi service in many parishes. Minister Shaw made an effort to remind the public that the child seat requirement had always been in existence but had never been enforced.
We have received a fresh wave of feedback from the public, and in hearing their concerns, we have agreed to review aspects of the regulations with a view to address the issues without compromising on the safety and the security of our road operations. One of the most debated aspects is the use of child restraint systems. The regulations place the responsibility on the driver of a vehicle to ensure that every child is conveyed in a prescribed child restraint system under Section 73 of the Act. The protective devices legislation that was introduced in 1999 and included in the Road Traffic Act 1938 in or about 2001 required the use of seatbelt and child restraint systems, but was not previously strictly enforced.
Only children of the weight and size to use an adult seatbelt are permitted to travel in the front passenger seat. All other children must be transported using appropriate restraints based on their size and weight in public transportation.
Children under 1 year old must be restrained by an adult. 1 to 3 year old may travel with no restraint or be restrained by an adult. 3 to 6 years old may travel without restraint, restrained by an adult, or a lap belt. 6 to 9 years old may travel without restraint or with a lap belt. Children over 9 years old may travel without restraint with a lap belt or a 3-point seat belt. Only children who are of the weight and size to use an adult seat belt are permitted to travel in the front passenger seat. In addition, where an adult is restraining a child, the adult should not be in the front. Children under 1 year old are to be restrained by an adult in all forms of transport. All other children must be transported using appropriate restraint based on their size and weight. Guidelines have been set out so persons can determine what kind of restraint is applicable for different categories.
In the meantime, leader of the opposition, Mark Golding, says he's disappointed that the government rejected his attempts to table the bill to amend the Road Traffic Act.
In accordance with the commitment that I gave, I had the bill prepared, vetted by persons who are very experienced in legal reform and parliamentary drafting, and I moved a motion in the House of Representatives today to have the leave of the House to introduce this bill. This is the bill here, and what the bill would do is two things. First of all, it would amend the section in the Road Traffic Act that deals with child restraint systems by saying that the provisions that would penalize a driver by way of a fine, a ticketable fine, and demerit points would not apply to drivers who are operating a public passenger vehicle. The bill also would relieve from any criminal liability any driver since the 1st of February who had been ticketed under that provision, and remove any demerit points consequent on that ticketing. That was dealt with in a specific provision in the bill. Unfortunately, the government used its majority to prevent me getting leave to have this bill introduced. The minister responsible for transport indicated that they will be bringing regulations, an amendment to the existing regulations to put in place a system of no restraint requirements effectively for children in public passenger vehicles, and optional restraint requirements depending on the age of the child. But that will not address the question of the tickets already issued to taxi operators and the fines and demerit points which they are facing from the enforcement of this particular law since February 1. So that remains an issue which is unresolved.
And those are the stories making the news this evening. Thank you for tuning in to Mello TV Evening News. I'm Nicole Hales. Stay safe and thanks for watching.